letting our fear and anger get the best of us, intentionally expanding the borders of the false world we created.
How you doing, guys? Welcome back to the Rantin review here. We're picking up with WandaVision again this week, episodes 6 through 7 that happened over the last couple of weeks. But before we get into all of that, of course, you can always help out the channel by sharing this video wherever you talk about Marvel, MCU, TV shows, whatever it is. I definitely appreciate it, so thanks, guys, for doing that, and keep it up. Now on to WandaVision. Episode 6 and 7, if episode 5 ended on this big bombshell of Evan Peters' version of Quicksilver showing up in the MCU, speculation ran rampant for the entire week. Well, what did that mean? So the next episode we get to, we are, I believe at this point we're in the 90s now, after coming out of that 80s episode. And they kind of do it, I guess it's supposed to be like a Malcolm in the Middle kind of thing or something like that. I don't know. There was a lot of talking to the screen. Weird. It reminded me of sitcoms because I didn't watch a lot of sitcoms at that point in time. I was kind of over them, so I never saw Malcolm in the Middle. But I never watched the whole episode, but I've seen bits and pieces of it, and it definitely looks like a sitcom from that era. They've got Quicksilver, however, is kind of like the uncle character, the wild, crazy uncle, and he actually references that because this version of Quicksilver has memories from the Aaron Taylor Johnson MCU version of Quicksilver that got shot in Age of Ultron. He even remembers that and then said, well, I remember I got shot like a chump in the street, and the next thing I know, I heard you calling me. He knows that Wanda's controlling all of this. He knows that it's a TV show and he's playing a role. He's hinting that he knows a lot more than she knows, or that she thinks that he knows, or thinks that he should know. Wanda, however, in this episode, she's, this is the Halloween episode, by the way, which is one of the famous, things that sitcoms always did, is holiday episodes, and this is WandaVision's Halloween holiday episode. Particularly, they chose Halloween and not any other holiday. Gave them a great opportunity for them all to dress up and everything. So Wanda's, she's coming down in her comic book costume. Quicksilver goes off and takes the kids, and the kid that grows up to be Speed, that one of the twins, he's wearing the comic book, like, really bad cosplay version of the outfit. Vision's even got his version of his comic book outfit, and it's funny how they play with the perception. Marvel is so good at understanding what the perception of them is in the world and playing on that, and the perception of the movie industry. And you saw a lot of that, especially episode 5, 6, and 7. It's just full of stuff like that. Their level of self-awareness is such a refreshing thing. But it's a Halloween episode, and Wanda, still doesn't quite know how Quicksilver's here, why he looks like somebody else and not like Aaron Taylor Johnson. Meanwhile, Vision they're still kind of fighting, and the kids, even, I think Billy actually alludes to that. And then Vision, however, says he's going to be doing neighborhood watch and security, which Wanda later finds out there's a bunch of BS. Because what Vision's actually going to do is take this opportunity to go and try to explore the neighborhood. And this is when things start getting really freaky. Because Agnes is out there, and she's out on the outskirts of town, where, as Vision's walking through all this stuff, the people are just kind of stuck in this loop, because we find out what's really going on with Wanda's powers. She's controlling all of these people within the Hex in this neighborhood, and she's only using certain people for the episodes that she's doing, and everybody else, because there's supposed to be like thousands of people in this town this Westview that she's hijacked. They're just either asleep, but they're awake, but they're asleep, and when they're acting in her show, they're aware that they're doing the stuff that they're doing. You saw that with the one guy at Vision's job, but they're like in pain because they have no control over their bodies. And these people on the outskirts of town, she's really not using them, and her power or her focus isn't on them. So they're just kind of stuck doing some loops. Like, you see the one lady with the tear coming down. I mean, that's terrible. Imagine like you were trapped inside your body doing things, but then your body would just be frozen and you couldn't do anything else. You're just frozen doing this, and you have no way of stopping yourself from doing this. You're awake in your head going, oh my God, I can't believe I'm just doing this over and over again. That's like insane. Like, she screwed some people up in this X-Men, I'm telling you. The interesting thing about this is that we have to keep in mind too, the MCU is going to be introducing mutants, and kind of, in fact, they've kind of already done it with Billy and Tommy, who, you know, they were born with superpowers, which technically makes them mutants. I think a lot of the other people in MCU so far, they've all gotten their abilities from some accident or a super serum or technology or whatever else. Billy and Tommy, I think, are the first ones who were born with superpowers. So that's a definite change. And the fact that when this is all over, the people that were trapped in this hex, these thousands of people, are not going to like superpower people. I don't care what explanation you're going to get. She kept them trapped like this for God knows how long. They are going to hate people. And then you might see this be where we get into more of that, of a theme that's really prevalent in X-Men, which is the average people, ordinary everyday people, Homo sapiens, being upset at the superpower people, or the Homo superior, to steal a Tomorrow People reference. The Homo superiors are not really happy with them, and that's the whole Mutant Registration Act, and gets into a lot more of that kind of stuff that goes on in the X-Men stories, which we know the X-Men will eventually be in the MCU. Good way to set up a lot of that stuff. It's not the only thing that's really set up in these episodes 6 and 7. We'll fast forward to the part Vision tries to get outside of the hex. His body's being ripped apart. Wanda has understands what's going on because Billy can sense it. Her one kid can sense it, who's got powers like she does. Evan Peters as Quicksilver says something snarky about your husband can't die 3 times, can he? And she just kind of blasts him away, so he's done. And then she kind of expands the hex, which encompasses not only Vision that's helped save him, but all of those S.W.O.R.D agents that couldn't get out of the way of the expanding, or the S.W.O.R.D agents, I should say, and that kind of brings us into the next episode. Episode 7, to be noted too, does have an extra credit scene if you did not stay around for that. I know the WandaVision episode so far hasn't done that tried and true tradition of Marvel Cinematic Universe properties, is to having a mid-credit or end credit scene. So there is one in episode 7 if you haven't seen it. I will talk about it at the end of this, spoilers for that. As we go into episode 7, Tyler Haywood, he's not happy at all. He's not feeling any of this superhero stuff. And again, back to what I was talking about earlier about there being this kind of resentment for superpower people. You can kind of see it in Haywood's character. But now he's like, I mean, we find out what's going on, that Wanda took Vision's body from what this dude was doing and trying to, I guess, reverse engineer Vision or whatever he was trying to do with Vision's body. That's all he really cares about. He doesn't care about any of this other stuff. He just wants to get Vision's body back so he can do the experiments that he wants to do on his AI technology. Monica Rambeau, however, along with Darcy and the FBI agent, Roland Park's character, they are, of course, they're the good guys they're standing up against. They see the tyranny that's coming out in Haywood here, but he dismisses them again, and there's problems with that. Darcy also lets Monica know in episode 6 that if she kept going back into the hex, it was going to rewrite her entire body, her DNA on a molecular level, and that's how we're going to get to Monica Rambeau getting her superpowers in this show. But Darcy got included in the hex at the episode 6-2. At the end of episode 6-2, she was, which was funny, and because I'm like, you don't really have to change her character. Darcy literally is a character from a 90s sitcom. And once she winds up there, Wanda made all the S.W.O.R.D agents clowns or whatever, and Vision's out there, and he's like confused as to what's going on. But Darcy, over the course of time, after some comedic bits between the two, which were actually kind of funny, they're in this truck trying to get back to the house, and Wanda's like throwing up all of these like roadblocks, like literally roadblocks, and construction workers, and a line of school children passing in front of their car so they can't get back to the house because Wanda's trying to keep them away. And they do all the cutouts because at this point we're now in 90s and early 2000s sarcasm phase. So people talking to the camera and doing what I'm doing right now, although they're talking into it as a confessional kind of thing. And that trope kept appearing, even with Vision, who at one point goes, "What am I doing? Why am I sitting here talking to?" This leads us into some more interesting things, though, as far as that whole first-person camera thing. So everything turned upside down. Monica Rambeau is, she referenced this friend of hers that has some technology that might help her get into the hex. We didn't find out who that friend is. Who's another S.W.O.R.D agent, an old friend of hers or whatever. And they come up with this big tank that they're going to drive through, which is the one you've probably seen in the trailers. Fortunately, that tank really didn't do much. It kind of hit the hex and then went up on its side, and she was about to get absorbed in that way, she hops out, and they're like, no, abort, abort, abort. And she's like, no, I can make it through. She knows she can make it through. And this is when we get the scene of Monica Rambeau going once again back into the Hex, pushing her way through. They kind of do that phase shifting thing where you see all these different versions of her throughout time and space and everything else. And she's kind of being rewritten, and when she comes out, her eyes start glowing blue because she has now adopted her comic book hero, like, who's got like 80,000. She was actually the first female Captain Marvel, but she was also Photon and Phasor, or what? She had a whole bunch of names in the comic books. But this is that Photon character, I guess we can call it, and she can now see the electromagnetic spectrum because the Photon character basically can see and manipulate pure energy. That's kind of the simplest way of explaining it. We'll get in more into her powers when we see how they're going to handle her power set on the show. But in a comic book, she's like crazy, like outrageously beyond Superman powered, which is, brings up narrative issues. But I think they'll tone it down for the MCU. But she goes back to Wanda's house, and she's trying to tell Wanda, she's like, look, Wanda, this is stuff's going on. You need to stop doing what you're doing. I understand you're being controlled, blah, 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 blah. She doesn't want to hear it. She goes out and she tries to attack Monica Rambeau, does Wanda, and Monica Rambeau kind of not so shaken by it this time. Not going to get blasted out of the Hex. She goes does the Superman stop. Will Ospreay would be proud. And she's got her energy crackling, and Wanda's like, wait a minute, you got some powers? What's going on here? During this whole episode too, Wanda's like losing control. Like it's supposed to be in the 2010s now, and like things are breaking down, and she can't control the redecoration of the house. Billy and Tommy's like they're like joysticks go from like I guess they were GameCubes to then the Atari, and then they had Uno cards because she couldn't keep track of when she was, where she was. Her mental control on this whole Hex thing is starting to slip away, and she's starting to lose her mind a little bit. And that's what this whole episode is about. And, well, that's not actually what the whole episode's about. The whole episode actually turns out to be about somebody else. And that somebody else, as many Marvel fans have suspected, was Agnes, is really Agatha Harkness, who is a significant character in the Scarlet Witch story from the comic books. And she basically is another witch like Wanda. Her powers are represented in the show by these purple smoke streaks. And we get this kind of reveal after she kind of gets Wanda's kids in the basement. And she kind of takes Wanda away from Monica Rambeau in that confrontation to go, hey, your kids are in the basement. And we've known the entire series that there's something off with this Agnes character. And a lot of people have already kind of guessed this. But she winds up leading breadcrumbs for Wanda to go down into the basement to see what's going on, and then she's like, oh my gosh, there's these vines and these altars and this book that's like radiating some like dark power or whatever, and very, very Doctor Strange-ish kind of stuff in this basement, and some purple power stuff, and Agatha reveals her whole wicked plan. And then the great way they did it, though, is they did a montage of all of the parody intros that they've done from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and they mashed them up into Agatha's actual intro to the show, that the show was actually about Agatha all along. It was all along about Agatha. She was controlling what's going on with Quicksilver. She controlled all these other things, and she killed the damn dog. But she makes this big reveal, and then she kind of does her magic mind melding thing on Wanda, who has no protection against it. And now things have gotten really out of control. So we've got S.W.O.R.D about to make an assault on the Hex from the outside. We find out that Monica Rambeau's got powers now after she's gone through. She's now Photon, and now she's in the Hex, so she's going to have to probably duke it out with both Wanda and Agatha at some point in time. Vision is now aware of what's going on, and Darcy's in there, so that's a bit of a problem. And all of this is going to come together at the head. We can see how this is all shaping towards a grand finale, and there's still some big super secret cameo that's apparently supposed to happen, although I heard it got leaked, so I'm not looking at it. So if you want to be surprised, don't look at that leak, because that's part of the fun of the show. The Evan Peters thing I didn't see coming at all. I didn't see that coming, and I love the fact that I was surprised by it. I don't want to know what the leaks are for the last couple episodes of WandaVision. And what is going on with Agatha Harkness? I get the sense that she's in control of the Hex, but she's working for somebody else. Again, the big speculation has been, it's been Mephisto, is it Mephisto, is it Nightmare, which one of these, legendary kind of supernatural Marvel comic villains is really behind what's going on here. Mephisto seems to be the obvious choice because of his link with this House of M storyline. In fact, Wanda's kids in the comic books were, I guess, think they call them shards, or I think it was shards of Mephisto actually was the basis for Wanda's kids, her twins, Billy and Tommy, and we still know, we've never met this Ralph that Agnes keeps talking about, that her husband, and I think that might be who Agnes is serving, and we're probably going to find out who Ralph is either in the next episode or maybe it's a big surprise at the end of the final episode of WandaVision. But I gotta say, again, me, like a lot of people, we were kind of thrown off by the first 3 episodes, although of course I knew what they were doing, that they were, doing this kind of period piece kind of sitcom thing, and I still find this, when I talk about this show in full retrospective, once the last, probably the next review of this, reviewing the whole series, I like the fact that they kind of took us back from the grand and bombast of all of that stuff that happened in Endgame and Infinity War and all that stuff, and we came back to something very, very small. A Marvel version of a 50s sitcom and a Marvel version of a 60s sitcom with a little bit of weird stuff going on, and we didn't quite know what was going on in the wider world, and they slowly have rolled that out. So I think it's the genius way of them doing this, and I think WandaVision was the perfect show to have in to start phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I want to know what you guys think. Has it paid off for you being patient for those first 3 episodes? Are you enjoying what's going on now? What do you think we're going to find out about the Evan Peters character? Because here's a spoiler, in the extra credit scene, she opens up the basement of double fold doors, and then she sees the vines and her eyes start analyzing all the energy, and then Evan Peters Quicksilver is standing right behind her, back in his kind of slacker look and like a Snoop. Snooper's gone Snoop. And then she sees him and they lock eyes, and that's the end of the extra credit scene. So that's curious, because it's a little confusing to know whether or not is Monica Rambeau possessed the same way Scarlet Witch was by Agatha Harkness's powers, or was that just her analyzing the powers as she did when she came back into the Hex? We don't really know, and really what's up with Evan is Evan Peters' character Quicksilver is still well, obviously the studios are making a reference to him playing the same character in the Fox Marvel universe, but is he pulled from that multi-dimensional universe, and are they including the Fox universe as an alternate dimension, which would be pretty cool if they did? Or is he one of the bad guys? Is he Ralph? Is he Mephisto? Is that who it is? And remember, Agatha was kind of controlling what Scarlet Witch saw him as with her magic. Maybe he looks that way, but in the next episode we find out that is Ralph, and that he doesn't look like that. He looks like somebody else. And maybe that's the big freaking reveal at the end of all of this. I think we got some pretty cool crap coming up in the last 2 episodes of WandaVision. But again, I want to know what you guys think. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Until then, hit the like button, subscribe button. Definitely share this video on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you talk about movies, TV shows, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And also look down in the description box below. There's some free goodies down there for you guys as well. I'll see you guys here for more videos and more reviews on the Rantin Review, and check out some of my other videos over here or here, wherever they are on the screen. I'll see you guys later. Take it easy.